traceability of requirements, tracing of requirements were completed. Followed by this, we need to discuss about how are we maintaining the requirements, how are we prioritizing it, how assessing of changes in requirements, if any, followed by approving of requirements. So these are the tasks which comes under requirement lifecycle management. So tracing of requirements, because there will be of two. One is forward and backward, as yesterday as mentioned you. What is that we have developed? That has to be tested by the testing team using like test cases, all that. So backward traceability, test cases, comparison to use cases. Now, when you talk about maintaining of requirements maintenance or requirements management and communication. Earlier it was called as requirements management and communication. Now later it was changed as requirement management. In that, when we talk about maintaining of requirements maintenance will be done on a documentation format. So this is where generally the difference you see when you talk about maintaining of requirements. So when you follow the traditional model, right? So when you follow the traditional model, normally managing of requirements will be made in a form of documents preparation. Will be in a form of documents preparation, right? So this is what generally we follow in traditional model. Traditional model, something like waterfall model, V model, all that, right? So whatever we use, managing of requirements will be done. So based on preparing documents, because there are a lot of people are involved in it. So we are interacting with many people. So communication can't be done manually, right? So orally you cannot explain all that. So what is that you can do? In spite of oral explanation, it is always helpful for us to prepare some document, so that if you can prepare a document and submit to the team, so that team can understand it well in advance. That's what generally we do in the traditional model. So here there are different documents we prepare. The first document we call it as BRD. So wherein BRD stands for business requirements document. This is what it is. Business requirements document. So this business requirements document majorly focusing on the business requirements, completely focusing on the business's problem, right? So business problem, business goal, vision, what problem we have identified, what was the solution, what are the critical success factors. So to discuss all that, generally BRD document we prepare. So this we prepare after all the information, what is that we have collected. Once we have done the business case, once we have understood the business objective, so once we have understood the need, scope, everything is done. The final document, what is that we prepare to communicate with the people, is all about BRD. So it's completely relating to business requirements. The second document, we call it as functional and non-functional requirements document. So normally usually there are templates we follow. we have our own templates to prepare the documentations. There are templates we see because every organization, they have their own templates to be followed for BRDs, all that. I'll show you. Yeah, something like this, business requirements document kind of stuff. This is how generally the business requirements document looks like. In this business, this is a template, one of the template. Like this, there may be other templates even, but everybody follow not the single template, right? There will be multiple templates will be there. Means whatever the discussion we had, whatever the conclusion we have made so far, so that conclusion has to be updated in this document. For that reason, this BRDs, all these were used here. Okay, so this is what it is. Now, business requirements document is completely focusing on the business requirements. So I will be explaining this document and all everything after some time. Okay, this is one thing. Now, after that, functional and non-functional requirements document followed by SRS. SRS stands for Software Requirement Specification. Software Requirement Specification, right? So, one, business requirements document. Second, functional and non-functional requirements. Third, software requirement specification. Usually, the functional and non-functional, we don't prepare this as a separate document, which will be incorporated in the SRS itself. Normally, we will incorporate that in the software requirement specification and we prepare. That's how generally we follow the procedure. Because when we are preparing software requirement specification, which is all about hardware and software, means which hardware are you using, which software. For example, when we are talking about cloud service provider, cloud application and all that, which cloud service provider you have used, right? So which operating system we have used. For front page designing, what is that you have done, right? All this information will be mentioned under the software requirement specification. This is what we call it as SRS document stands for. I'll be showing SRS document in some time, right? So SRS document is something relating to that, right? So software requirement specification, we call it as. So SRS document will be prepared here. So when you want to maintain the requirements in traditional model, we prepare BRDs, business requirements document. We prepare software requirement specification with the in connection to the functional and non-functional. Here is a question. As business analyst belongs to the functional aspects of most of the cases, how come business analyst prepare software requirements? Because how come business analyst know? Here, what is that we need to understand? Software requirement specification is a document explains us about hardware, software, operating system, all that will be prepared by the technical team. Because whatever the required inputs, if any, business analyst will be prepared, will be given by the PA. Which hardware to be used, which software, which operating system, what is the database, all that will be prepared by the technical team itself. So this is one way of requirements communication or managing of requirements in a form of traditional model, right? This is how traditional model works. Now, when we talk about agile, okay, when we follow the agile model or when we follow the agile methodology, so when you follow the agile methodology, so when you follow the agile methodology, we don't prepare documents because we will not be having that much time to prepare all the documents. That's not usually possible, right? So we can't prepare documents, all that, not possible. In spite of documentation, what is that we do? As I mentioned you, we write user stories. we write user stories. This is what we do. So writing user story is what we do in Agile. So user story, nothing but it's a short description of requirement. I will show you how to write user story so that you will be understood in some time. Right? Short description of requirement. For example, I am taking a requirement. For example one, there is a functional requirement. Functional. For every functional requirement, there is a user story you can write. It's a short way of explanation. You don't require to prepare documents like this, right? So because these kind of documentation, writing all the information, right? So these sort of things won't be there in the agile way of approach. Why? Because in agile, especially, we don't have that much time. Whatever the work we are doing, everything in short iterations. We don't see this much time to do all that, right? So in part of requirements communication, if you want to communicate, for example, if I am a business analyst, let me assume that if I am a business analyst, if I follow traditional approach, we have time. So as a part of requirements, managing requirements and communicating it, I can follow this document because we have ample time, enough time. But whereas when you follow the traditional model, when you follow the agile model, maybe being a business analyst, I may become a product owner, right? Because in the beginning days, I have told you, right? I may become a product owner normally. So being a product owner, what is that we do? We will not be having that much time. Time is not that much. So what we do, whatever the requirement, that requirement will be translated into a shorter format. That's what we call it as user story. We write user story in a simple sense. So in spite of writing down documents, giving it to them and all, it is always preferable to write a user story and give it to the team members so that they will be going through that accordingly. That's what generally we do. Now, how to write user story and what is an example for that? So I'm taking an example here of creating a login page, for example. Right? So this is what I'm taking, right? So creating a login page. For example, customer is asking us to create a login page. This is one functionality. Okay. Now, if you want to write a user story, how to write a user story is what I may be showing you practically. Now, to write a user story, there is a format and standard we follow. You cannot write user story the way you can, right? That's not the way. There is a standard we have to follow. At the same time, there is a principle to write a user story even because characteristics of writing user story is also there. So just simply by I said user story in a shorter format doesn't mean you can write down like this anything. That won't work out. That won't happen. Okay, we don't do that. So there is a template we follow. So the template is as follows. As a system user, action followed by result. This is what generally the template we follow. Now you could ask me one thing, Raj, who is going to write this? A product owner is writing. So product owner, consider project owner is a user, right? Consider project owner is a user because assume that if he's a business analyst, right? Business analyst is a representative. So business analyst is saying, what is that saying? If I am a user, right? If I am a user, this is what my result is. I'm expecting this result. If this result to be performed, what is the action has to be taken care of? That's the reason why whenever you're writing down a user story, we always write a user story from the user perspective. Okay, remember this point carefully. When you are writing down a user story will be written based on the user perspective. This is what we have to see. Now, what am I doing is I'm writing down a user story for using this template for creating a login page. Okay. But if you want to write down a user story, as I told you, there is a principle to write a user story. There is a principle we follow, or a characteristic, right? Characteristic of writing user story, or a principle. There is a, if to write a user story, there is a principle to follow. So what is this principle? This principle is what we call it as INVEST. This is what INVEST principle stands for. First point, I stands for independent. User story must be independent. It should not have any interconnect. Why? Because especially in Agile, there must be a provision to change the functional requirements or something like at any point in time. That's what the advantage you see in Agile. But whereas in traditional model, changing of requirements in between is something difficult. But whereas in Agile way of approach, yes, it is possible. You can do the changes as many times as you want, subject to terms and conditions. So that's the reason why when you're writing down a user story must be independent and individual. This is point number one. Second, N stands for negotiable. N stands for negotiable. User story always have a provision to negotiate. So we should be able in a position to negotiate the user story all the time. So user story must be independent. User story must be negotiable. We should always have a provision to negotiate the user story. Next, V, user story must be valuable. We don't write everything as a user story. Unless until we see the importance of a particular functionality, you're writing down user story. So when you're writing any user story means user story will have a value or it must be having a value. That's what we call it as V stands for valuable. Next, user story should be able in a position to estimate. Means estimatable. This is what we call it as. Estimatable means when you are writing down a user story, that should be able in a position to estimate by us. We should be able in a position to estimate how much time it will be taken, right? All these things has to be done. That's the reason why it is estimatable. Next, yes. Yes stands for small. User story must be small as it can be, right? So you should not write big and large user stories, right? That's not the way of doing it. It must be small and it must be testable. User story should be able in a position to test, right? So this is a principle which normally we follow when you're writing down a user story, or else you can also consider it and call it as characteristic of a user story. If you want to write down a user story, this is what the character we follow. It must be independent. It must be negotiable. It must be valuable. It must be estimatable. It must be small. It must be testable. This is what generally the INVEST principle we follow. Now, I am writing down a user story for creating a login page. How do you write? I'll show you. For creating a login page. Okay. As a system user, I want you to create login credentials so that I can use the system. As a system user, I want you to create login credentials so that I can use the system. So here, if you see as a system user, what was the result? The system user is expecting you that I want to use the system. This is what the result system user is expecting. So for that, what system user is expecting you to do? I want you to create login credentials. This is what the action development team need to perform. Development team need to perform, right? So system user want to use the system. Using the system is what the result by the system user. So if you want to do that, what is that you required? You need to have login credentials. If you don't have login credentials, you can't do anything. So creating login credentials is what an action development team has to do. So that's the reason why product owner is writing a user story. And this user story will be given to whom? Finally, it will be given to the development team so that they are writing down they are developing the login page accordingly. But if you have written this user story, if you remember, there is something missing in it, right? For example, if this is the user story I have written, this I have given to you guys. Do you feel this user story, whatever is I have written, is sufficient? To an extent possible, yes, but not to the full extent. But something is missing in it. What was that? That the thing is, what is that we are missing is how should it looks like, how to develop. So this was not discussed so far. Right? So how? Because for example, if I'm asking you to create a login page, the next question, what is that you ask me? Raj, how should it looks like? Is there any reference to you are giving? Or is there any specific conditions are you talking about? Is there any specific? Because you could ask me one thing, Raj, login page looks very same, right? So how it is different? How come you say, right? So there is no guarantee. Sometimes customer has different opinions and expectations. So when you are writing down a user story writing up will be of different types. There are different ways of writing down a user story. It will not be the same for all the time, right? So how to write user story is what we need to learn, because we haven't discussed anything like how should it looks like, all that, right? In the user story, you don't see other. In the user story, what is that you see? I want you to create login credentials is what only we have discussed, but we haven't discussed about how. Okay. Now, the reason why when you are writing down a user story, along with this, you need to write acceptance criteria. Acceptance criteria, the name itself will represents that. Acceptance criteria means how this functionality will get accepted, right? What is the criteria to be followed in order to make this functionality live, right? So acceptance criteria as follows. There must be two fields for username and password.
Hello. Uh, can you tell me what were you writing when you said I want you to create login credential? You said that something has to be given to developers. Like you have deleted that.
What
Like
is
in
that
the
I have deleted?
huh?
What I said is that how is missing. That's what I said.
How is missing?
How is missing. In order to explain you how acceptance criteria we are writing.
Okay.
Did you understand?
Actually, before how is, you had something written about the like giving something to developers or something. What was that you have
This
written
is
before?
what action was. Action to be performed. This is what I said. Action which need to be performed.
Okay.
This is what I have written.
Okay.
Because this is not necessary. In order to explain that, I have written it. Normally, when you write a user story, we don't write all that. So in order to explain that, I have written and I have deleted. This is what I have written. Okay. And this is what I have deleted. Understood now? Clear?
Hello. So you said that action which need to be performed by the development team, right?
Yes, yes. This is
Oh,
what the action which need to be performed by the development team.
okay, okay,
But creating login credentials is what we said, but we haven't informed, we haven't told them that how to create, right? We
okay.
haven't said anything. So to instruct that, again, we have to write acceptance criteria.
Okay.
Every
Okay.
user story must be accompanied with acceptance criteria. That's what I'm saying. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Right. So there must be 2 fields for username and password, right? That is required. Need to have a submit and cancel button. Next, there should be a provision to retrieve the password if someone forgot. Right. At the same time, need to have an option for new registration. Right. So forgot password, at the same time, new registration option should also be there in the login page. So that if someone has forgotten the password, they simply click on forgot password. On the login page I'm talking about, right? When we are creating a login page. At the same time, you need to have an option for new user, right? So when they're clicking on new user, automatically user page will be opened. That's how generally acceptance criteria we are writing. Why? Because this, unless until if you don't have this acceptance criteria, development team don't know how should it looks like, right? But for that is for one reason. Second reason, it is not only for development team, it is for testing team. For example, what is that I said? In the traditional model, we prepare test case, right? How the functionality looks like, we prepare a test case. We means testing team, right? Testing team will prepare a test case. Now, in agile environment, you don't have a document. Test cases and all everything, we don't prepare. So that's the reason what is that we need to do? We have to write acceptance criteria for that. So acceptance criteria you are writing along with the user story. Acceptance criteria is also writing by you. So why acceptance criteria? Acceptance criteria you are writing for the benefit of making development team followed by the testing team to understand. This is what generally user story followed by acceptance criteria is all about. So this is how generally we write functionalities when we follow agile practice, when you follow agile practice as a part of maintaining requirements. If you follow traditional model, we prepare business requirements document, all that, right? So this is what it is. Now, what is that I have explained is user stories. Now I'm explaining about what exactly business requirements document and what is that are we going to write under the BRD part as a part of traditional model. So the template, what is that I have shown you is this. This is what the template here. In reference to the case study, what is that I have taken, right? So this is what the case study we have taken yesterday, right? So this is what I have explained. In reference to the case study, let me explain you how you are going to write the document here. Now, this is the template. As I told you, this is one of the template. Like this, there are other templates also in the organizations. They provide, not by you. So templates structure may vary, but what is that essence of writing documentation remains same and constant so that you don't need to worry. Now here you need to write down the name of the project, right? So let me create a separate name of the project. Save as. Right, so as CPOS, I'm just creating it as CPOS. Okay, now right, so CPOS, for example, right? So cloud-based point of sale system. This product name called Ekite, right? So there is a product name they have given, which is called as Ekite. Right, so cloud-based point of sale system. I'm writing few, not everything, because everything possible here to write at this level, right? So Ekite cloud-based point of sale system is a project. So this is a business requirements document. In this business requirements document, here you need to write down the document revision history, we call it as. What is document revision history? Document revision history explains you about what are the versions are we using. Means there are different versions. For example, this is the document I have prepared. Maybe after a few days or after a couple of weeks, something, there are some requirements were changed by the development team. No, sorry, by the customer. So whatever the changes was proposed, underline this point, but proposed must be accepted, right? For acceptance, of course, there is a criteria we follow. That's what we call it as change requirement, right? Change requirement. So whenever there is a proposal came from the customer, normally any changes in between, whatever they have given, that's different. In between, sometimes customer is asking you to do some changes with the help of business analyst team, with the help of project management team, with the support of the technical team. What is that possible and viable? That only we do. We don't. If customer is saying that I want you to change all these, we don't do that, because again there is a criteria we follow. So that criteria I will tell you later. So when there are possibilities that there is possibility that we may be changing few things. So what is that we are doing? Changes and all everything. How come you know? Because if you don't prepare document revision history, you have to prepare this document in a duplicate format, right? So duplications will happen. In order to reduce the duplicacy, document revision history majorly understands us about to prepare what are the changes we have made in this, right? What changes we have made so far? What are those changes? All these things will be explained under the change description. This is what we call it as document revision history. Stands for, means what changes we have made, when we have made, who has requested, it's been revised by whom, and what was the change description. Is it a functional one? It is a non-functional one? Is it a security requirement changes are we making? Are we doing any versional changes? So if you are preparing this we don't prepare in the initial time. This will be prepared over a period of time. This won't be prepared in the first day. This will be prepared over a period of time. Whenever we are preparing, whenever we are working on the project development, whatever the changes will be made. So those changes will be made in the document. The same thing will be mentioned under the revision history, so that we will be knowing about what are the changes we have made over a period of time and where we have made the changes, who has requested all that. So this is what generally document revision history stands for. Okay, so this is a continuous process, we do it. Now here you need to write down the glossary of terms in reference to the case study, or else you can consider it as a project, whatever it is. Normally I call it as a case study, right? So here there are some terminologies we are using which people should understand. For that, generally we write down this terminology, something like, I'm just showing you a few examples to you, right? So we are talking about POS somewhere, right? Because there is no guarantee that what is POS known to people. So point of sale system. Next, we have used a word called Ekite. What is Ekite? Ekite is a product name of the product. This is of cloud CPOS. Cloud point of sale system. Next, we have used one more name called Windows Azure, right? So we have used it. What was Windows Azure? Is a cloud-based platform, right? So this is how there are some terminologies. Of course, whichever the domain is this belongs to, those terminologies will be written. As I have taken a retail this thing, I'm writing down the terminologies in reference to that, right? So that was the project. Assume that what was the project, that is what I'm writing here. So this is what generally the terminologies will be written, right? POS system, Ekite, Windows Azure. These are the terminologies will be mentioned under the glossary of terms. Few I mentioned, right? If there is any, we can write down. Now here you need to write down the purpose of writing down the document. The main purpose of writing business requirements document is to make people to understand what are all the the main purpose of writing down the document is to make people to understand what are all the requirements which are included in developing cloud-based point of sale system. As I'm just writing in a rough manner, right? So not in a formal way of approach. Usually this is how usually we write. Okay, as this CPOS is used for all the retailers to perform their billing and other activities in a more hassle-free manner. Right, so this is what generally the purpose of we have written. Now here you need to write down the audience, right? So audience name, right? Who is the project name members, project sponsor, business owner, technical owner, other key stakeholders. So that information will be written under the audience. Now usually projects are medium projects per sizing matrix. This is what the criteria, let it remains the same. Now here timings means normally these times will be decided by, here you need to write down the time of taking to complete this application, how much time is it taking. Let's say that normally project management team will decide how much time do we have to complete the project. Either it may be 6 months or it may be 8 months or it may be 12 months or it may be 18 months, whatever it is, right? So whatever the duration it could be. So we have to mention the duration here, right? How many time, how much duration do we have to write down the documents and all everything. So that information we have to write. I've just mentioned it as 6 months. You can consider either it is at 8 months or 10 months, 12 months, whatever it is. Whatever the duration for the project is, which is decided by the project management team, that's what will be written under the timings here. So the next was naming convention. Naming convention was again, we prepare something like, for example, when you are mentioning about date, right? What is the format you follow, right? MMDDYY, DDMMYY, or YYMMDD. For example, you are mentioning about a customer ID, right? What is the character length of the customer ID? Or sorry, customer ID maybe, right? What is the length of the character? How many special characters must be there? How many alphabetic should be there? How many what we called numeric numbers are there? This is all comes under naming convention. Now here you need to write down the project manager name, right? So who is the project manager? Name of the manager. Project sponsor, who is the name of it? Who is a business owner? Who is an IT owner? And next here you need to write down the project description, right? So this is a project description here we need to write. It's a cloud-based point of sale system which will say cloud-based point of sale system which can be used by the retailers with the help of using their laptop, using their systems, whatever it is, right? Using their systems with a proper internet connection. They don't need any infrastructure as separate, where this application works on a cloud environment. Right? I'm just naming few. I'm naming few, very few, right? So not everything I'm not writing because a lot of information was involved, right? So this is how generally project description will be written. Now here you need to write down the purpose. So whatever we have discussed so far, right? Business purpose, objectives, whatever the goals, all that information has to be written here. Now here you need to write down the problem. What was the problem? If you see the case study, there is a problem which was written here. What was that? System performance and data centralization have always been but key, but POS technology has traditionally not delivered this to everybody's satisfaction. So what customers are facing? Customer was facing with traditional point of sale system that it is not system performance and data centralization. Those two are not there. So the problems here is system performance and data centralizations are the problems. Okay, now what are an effect because of this? First effect, delay in billing, unable to generate reports as customized. Right? So we are unable to generate customized reports is what the problem was affected. Now impact. What was impact? This may leads to decline in sales, right? Unable to take decisions. This is what is the impact. Now, what is the successful solution? Developing a cloud-based point of sale system is what we need to do under the problem opportunity statement, right? So this is what it is. System performance and data centralization is the problem. Effects, delay in billing, unable to generate reports as customized, decline in sales, unable to take decisions. Cloud-based point of sale system will be the successful solution. This is what generally problem statement. Now, what are the scope? Because if you remember, scope of the project I told. So what are the inclusions? What are the exclusions that you have to write down under the constraints? What are all to be included? Included. Yes.
Yes, can you please explain about the normal POS and the cloud environment POS? Like how is that, how does both, like how do they differ?
Regular point of sale system, you have a device, you have infrastructure, you have a connectivity. Cloud-based point of sale system, data is uploading on the cloud. What is that you require is a laptop or a desktop with an internet connection. Whatever the data you are maintaining, everything will be uploaded on the cloud. It is not in your premises. Whatever the cloud service provider, there it will be uploaded. If you want, you can access the data in the cloud environment across the world. That's what the difference between traditional to cloud based.
So how is the cloud environment is like? Is the cloud environment is like there is no infrastructure? Like where is that going to be like?
That infrastructure will be maintained in the cloud environment. So cloud service provider will take care of all that. It is very simple. Nowadays we are using mobiles, right? iPhones, all that.
Yeah.
Right? Where are we storing all the data? Are you storing the data in your mobiles? If you are giving user ID password of this iPhone, automatically your data is storing on the cloud. If you lost the mobile or if your mobile was thefted or mobile was lost, what is that we are doing now? Your data is safe. You can use the same login credentials and you can download the data. Am I right?
Okay.
Are we doing this or not? Yes or no? Yes or no?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Right. Because earlier the system was different. If you see the mobile system earlier, if there is a mobile, for example, mobile lost, we used to lose the data. That's how the position earlier. But nowadays, what is happening? All the mobile have a cloud account. If it is a Samsung cloud, iPhone, iCloud, right? There is a registered user ID password has to be given. So whatever the data you are maintaining in your mobile, what is happening this? All this work loading on the cloud account. For example, your mobile got corrupted and you got an information that it was not repaired, right? So no repair, nothing, right? So due to different reasons. What you can do, still your data will be safe. Why? Because it is using your login credentials. The data was in the cloud environment. Who is maintaining the iCloud? iPhone people, iCloud environment as maintaining it. So you are buying a new iPhone, you are giving user ID password so that you whatever the data you have, everything can be seen by you. But make sure you need to register the cloud account and uh, you need to make sure that all the data will be in the cloud environment. Who is maintaining the cloud data? Are you maintaining it being a user? No. Who is
No.
maintaining it? iCloud people are maintaining, or Samsung people are maintaining, or someone is maintaining, right? Whoever the cloud mobile provider. The same thing applied even for cloud-based point of sale system. Even whatever the infrastructure, whatever the database, whatever the data to be maintained, everything will take care of by the cloud service provider. For that, you are paying some amount of money for them. Against to the services you are using, you are paying because it's a commercial application. But whereas maybe in phones and all everything, you may not be paying for that. But here, normally it's a commercial application against to the services you are using in the cloud environment. To use the cloud account of that application, you have to pay some amount of money. Means you means retailer. Retail has to pay some amount of money. So that, for example, if he's changing the laptop or a desktop, we don't have any problem. Data will be safe. Did you understand now? Clear?
Yes,
Right,
sir.
yes. Thank you.
That's the difference. So here you need to write down the in scope and out scope. In scope means what are all is in our control, right? What are all in our control, right? Duration, technical management, infrastructure, all these things in our control. What are exclusions out of scope, which is not in your control? What is not in your control? For example, customer is changing the requirements. This is not in your control. For example, customer doesn't allow you to access the data. That is not in your control. So these are exclusions. These are exclusions. Now, assumptions. What are assumptions? Assumptions means this application is not a 24/7 application. Why? Because it's a cloud-based point of sale system. This works only during the business hours, morning 10 to evening 10. For example, business days and business hours, it is working. If it's an e-commerce kind of application, it works 24/7, right? Online bill sales application or something like, right? All that, shopping portal, all that. But it's not a shopping portal kind of stuff, right? It's a point of sale system. As long as shop opens, as long as retail store opens, that application will be used. That is one assumption. Next, second assumption. Assumption second is that, for example, customer means I'm talking about retailer. Assume that retailer is having an idea on cloud environment, right? That is what assumption we are making. For example, if the customer doesn't have any idea about the cloud environment, what is that we do? That's the reason why whenever the project is completed, we provide training to the team, end users. That's the reason why documentation will be prepared by the documentation team. That's what we call it as user manuals, training manuals. We use different names for that. So we prepare documents and we give training to them. Because, for example, if I have developed a project, what is that I need to give? I need to provide training to you guys, at least by for 1 day or 2 day or 3 day, I have to sit with you. I need to explain, right? This is how it looks like. This is how it functions. This is how you need to operate. So unless until if I don't give training so that you guys cannot use it. So I'm not giving for everyone in your organization, right? For example, your organization has chosen 3 to 4 people. I give training for those 3 to 4 people. So they takes care of that in their organization, right? That's how we do it. This is what will comes under key assumptions. Now, when you talk about dependencies, what is dependency? For example, if you want to work on cloud-based point of sale system, you need to have a proper connect with inventory management. If you don't have a connect with inventory management system, how come the product name will be displayed on the screen? For example, you go to the shop, if you observe, you buy the product, whenever the product will be taken by the billing person, he scan it. Whenever he scan the product barcode on the barcode, immediately product name will be displayed on the screen. How come it happened? Because there was inventory management application which was connecting to point of sale system. So, and that inventory management system has a classification. For every product, there is a barcode was given. So whenever you have scanned, automatically product name was displayed. So what this billing guy do? Only he just mentioned the units. For example, we have taken 4 bath soaps, right? So he mentioned 4 quantity and he presented. Automatically unit price into quantity will be multiplied and final cost will be appeared. Right. So you don't write it everything manually, right? So when the scan automatically, so there is a dependency for point of sale system. What is the dependency here? Inventory management system is a dependency, right? Next, what is one more dependency? Need to have a proper internet connection. That is a dependency. For example, I developed a cloud POI system. Some retailer has taken. They don't have proper internet connection, no speed, nothing. Then there will be of no value. At the same time, choosing the right cloud service provider is also a dependency. Of course, we have taken Windows Azure, which is a big one. So they have that ability to manage the infrastructure, hence no problem. For example, if you have not chosen the right cloud service provider, what will happen? What will happen? Automatically, your services won't be good. For example, you are buying a mobile, which is very good, but the network was not good. What is the use then? Right? So those we call it as dependencies transfer. Right? So this is how generally these will be written. So followed by risk and issues and all everything that I'll be explaining in tomorrow session. Of course, I cannot complete it everything on a single day. The rest will be continued in tomorrow session. Is it clear? So this is all about the business requirements document. To some extent, I have completed, right? Not to the remaining part. I'll be explaining later, not on Monday. Sonam, I'll wait for some time till people came and attend. That's the reason why I'll wait. Okay. So I'll be on time all the time, unless until if there is any urgency, otherwise I'll be on time. But why should I wait? Because I should wait at least for 5 minutes, at least to people to join with. That's the reason why I take time intentionally. This is for your question you have asked. Even though I start the recording, doesn't mean that I start the class. Okay, if everybody is not present, I see the minimum number, right? If everybody is attended, then I'll start the session. It doesn't mean class recording started immediately I start. Okay, I see the number, based on that I do. Software application, nothing but project. Simple. This is for the question of Sonam. Transitional requirements from, this is the question asked by Dilly. When do we use transitional requirements? There is no using of transitional requirements. Transitional requirements means from traditional model to cloud-based. That's what we call it as transitional requirement stands. So Epic is different, user story is different. Epic is a large scale of solution. This is for the question asked by Saurabh. How do we translate Epic to user stories? If the product conducting JAT session, how do you define? So there is a clear distinction you need to understand. JAT sessions and all everything will be conducted in the traditional model. If you remember and if you go through the recording when I've explained about requirement illustration and collaboration, I have mentioned it very clear. JAT sessions and all everything will be conducted in traditional model. But whereas in agile environment, we don't have a provision because We don't require. We don't have. It's not we don't have provision. We don't require. Why don't we require? Because we are connecting regularly. We are interacting with the team and all everything regularly, so that you don't have any provision to conduct a chat session as separate in Agile, because it's not once in a while, right? Every day people are interacting with them, so that there is no need of conducting chat session as separate in Agile if you follow. In traditional model, yes, we follow the chat session. So there is a clear distinction between these two. Next, when you talk about epic and user story, right? How do you translate epic and user story? This is what it is. For example, in a simple note, I'll tell you. This is what epic stands for. CRM loyalty is an epic. What is user story? These are the user stories. Powerful loyalty program is one user story. Creating CRM system database is one user story. Point-based loyalty programs is one user story. Targeted marketing is one user story. What is epic here? Franchisee multi-location is one epic. It's a large scale of solution. If you want to implement the solution, what is that you require? You need to write down all the functionalities. So these functionalities you are writing in a form of user story. I hope it clarified. I think Saurabh, it's clarified to you. I think Kashima, you have the same question. Think clarified to you, right? Epic is a large scale of solution. User story is the functionality in it. What is that I have shown is this. User story, see, user story nothing but it's a functionality which customer wants, right? It's not third person, customer who, for example, I am asking you that I want this. Simple. Right. This is the question asked by BJ. Acceptance criteria, who defines? Product owner defines that, because product owner is writing down the user story. He has to write down the acceptance criteria. And how the program or a project should look like? Is it based on what customer shareholder want? Yes. According to the requirements of the customer, project has to be completed. Otherwise, it is considered as a failure. So acceptance criteria, again, I'm saying acceptance criteria is written by the product owner along with the user story. Login page. So user story, nothing but functionality. It could be a login page, or it could be a forgot password, or it could be something like this. For example, this is what I have taken, right? For example, I have taken this, right? For example, printing and labels and tags, right? This is one functionality. So how the functionality should looks like? So for that, you need to write user story as separate. In order to make it more simple, I have taken login page creation as an example, right? So for any functionality, there is a user story must be written. Acceptance criteria must be written. Otherwise, without acceptance criteria, you can't write down the user stories. That's what. Because user story doesn't have a value. Because you will be in a state of confusion, because how should it looks like? What is that it is required? How come you know? If you are a developer or a tester, how come you know it? Unless until there are some instructions and guidelines has to be provided as a form of acceptance criteria, then only it will be possible. Otherwise, no. That's the answer.
Hello.
Go ahead.
Hi, Raj. So just quickly, I was the one who asked, like, should user stories be in third person? So what I meant was like, the example that you gave us was like, as a system user, I want you to create login credential so that I can use the system. So instead of this, can a business analyst write, as a system user, customers want developers to create login credentials so that customer can use the system?
No. Product owner itself is a user here. Understand this point. In Agile,
yeah,
you are a product owner, you are a user. You are writing on your behalf.
So can you write like as a system user, product owner wants
No,
developer
no,
to create, or no?
no. You don't write as a product owner. Then who is writing the user story? Then product owner is writing, right? Then why do you mention as a product owner?
Okay.
You understood?
Yeah.
See, it is very simple. Your name, please?
Sumit.
Sumit. See, I'll tell you one thing. You want something. What is that you say? Raj, I want this.
Yeah.
You didn't tell your name, right? You don't say your name, right? What is that you say? Raj, I want this, right? This is what I want. I'm looking like, right? So this is what my, for example, you come and ask me, Raj, I want to send an email. That's what you said. Simple. That's it. You came to me and you asked, Raj, I want to send an email or I want to receive an email. That's it. Now, here is my question. If Sumit wants to send an email or receiving an email, what is it required? Sumit require. What is it Sumit require? Sumit should have a Gmail account or a mail account is required. So how to create email? That is a acceptance criteria. Did you understand now? Clear?
Yeah, it's clear. Thank you.
Yes or no?
Yeah.
See, you came here, you asked me, Raj, I want to send an email. That's what you said. Simple. You didn't say anything. You said, I want to send an email. So what, being a development team, I have to do? If you want to send an email, what is that I have to do? I need to create a mail account and I have to give. Then only you can do. So that is the action has to be performed. But how to perform that action? Do you have any kind of information with you? I'll be asking you. If there is any information, you will be providing me. Otherwise, we prepare on our own way. That's how generally user story and acceptance criteria was interconnected. Understood? Clear?
Yes. Thank you.
Yes. So when is the last day of training? I cannot say now. 2 weeks is completed so far. We have so this BRD document is completed. Next, functional and non-functional in SRS I'll show you. After that, UML diagrams. The next healthcare topics has to be covered. I cannot tell you the exact date. So you can speak to Manik so that Manik will tell you that. This is for the question of Mr. Fahd. User story and acceptance criteria, the difference I have already told. User story is a functionality. Acceptance criteria, in order to make that functionality successful, what are the criteria to be followed? That's what we call it as acceptance criteria. I have shown the example on the Word document. You can see this, Lakshmi. This is for the question. Since we do lots of documentation, should we need to get ourselves trained in Word Drive with Word and Drive for documenting? That is what I'm doing, right? So see, to write on the documentation, what is that is required for you is very simple. You need to have a vocabulary with simple sentence formation. That is required. That is the fundamental rule. What is that I'm writing is a sample document, right? But formally writing down the document, a lot of practice is required. That's not a one-day job, right? You don't get it in overnight. That's a way of practice where you have to write. And moreover, if you're writing something, there must be something, some brainstorming session has done for a very long time. Just you don't simply write down the document, right? You don't write down BRD document in overnight. So there are a lot of discussion happened. There are a lot of interaction with the technical team, business users, all that. And whatever the final conclusion statement that you are mentioning in a document. So for that, what is required? You require a neat vocabulary, a simple vocabulary, a simple sentence formation. That's what you need to learn to write a document. So there is no shortcuts for that. This is for the question in reference to summary. Yeah, business requirements document will be written by the BA team alone. BA team, okay, don't consider, because most of the people have some misconception here. BA means single person. No, for one project, you don't see one BA. There are multiple BAs available. Normally 1 to 4 maximum. Maximum, I'm saying 1 to 3, I can say. 1 to 3 business analysts will be there, not by a single person alone. Because whatever the case study I have taken is a sample, but whereas in real environment, projects are very big, right? So one person alone cannot do all the activities, right? One person can't go for interact with the people, getting the things all done, right? Not possible. So the work delegation among the BA team, right? So you do this task, you do this task. Finally, end of the day, these people will sit and they'll discuss what information you have gathered, what information you have gathered. All that we do. So this is be written by the BA role. Okay, underline this point, Isha. BA role, not by the BA individual role, right? So maybe there may be 2-3 BAs are there. Collective responsibility to write the BRD. SQL is not mandatory. Structured query language, that is extra. Sumit. Can we have another example? I'll show you tomorrow because there is time lagging. I'll show you another example for user story and acceptance criteria. I'll create one more and I'll show you if you want. I'll do it tomorrow. So SQL is not, that's what I'm saying. SQL is not mandatory to be a business analyst all the time, because SQL is to write SQL queries to extract the information and all. That is not mandatory for all the business analyst jobs. Business analyst job majorly focusing on requirements gathering, all that. I think this is all for the questions. So one example I'll show you tomorrow, Sheila, so that you will be understood much better. Okay, so this is all for today. Right, so we meet tomorrow. Bye.